My name is Daniel Sulzbach, also known as MrRepzion, and what you're about to watch is a video live podcast which was recorded on July 30th, 2012, hosted by, his show is known as The Gates of Will. This is a recent podcast show that he started. This is episode 8, and I was invited to go be on his show as a special guest along with Hallcyon, also known as Galen. And in this video, we discuss a topic known as bullying. What is bullying? Is there a difference between bullying online, cyberbullying versus real-life bullying? What's the difference between bullying and having freedom of speech? And I even go into some detail about when my ex-girlfriend filed a restraining order against me, trying to claim that I was harassing her, or I should say /bullying her, from third-party information. With that said, please enjoy this 23-minute live video podcast of myself, Will, and Galen. There are a bunch of links down below in the description which you can check out, which will take you to the Facebook page, their Twitters, Will's YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, Galen's YouTube channel. Everything down below is in the description if you would like to know more about these individuals. And with that said, please enjoy.
And welcome to the Gates of Will, epic fucking internet television. As you see it right in front of you, I'm your host, Will Group. Tonight I bring a couple of special guests, so let's bring up to you Galen, Hallcyon, and MrRepzion. How you guys doing tonight?
Fantastic.
Sweet deal. Well, tonight we are going to be discussing a rather peculiar topic. We are going to get drunk and we're going to talk about bullying, ladies and gentlemen. Bullying. It used to have legitimate meaning to it, but it seems like over the years it has lost quite a bit of meaning to it. Now it seems like anything and everything can be considered bullying, from a mere insult to calling somebody out to even raising the slightest bit of rage. So, Galen, I'm going to start with you. What, in your honest opinion, is bullying?
Well, I have to say it's not just what is bullying, but what is not bullying. I mean, a lot of people like to justify bullying to say any offense and victimhood, where they just be like, if anything is offensive, they can dish out criticism and then they say, oh, I'm being bullied now. It's just like an automatic defense where they can automatically be righteous without any argument. They just call that out. I think there are some things that you have to be clarified more than just saying, I was bullied. And there's so many things that can go under that category that can be explored. It's like in a legal case, if somebody, you could say something was bullied that would fall under some kind of criminal offense, you'd have to look at the specific context of what happened. You just can't do a gross generalization of what's going on and just, throw that out there. But most people do that in our Twitter, social media world, where we just throw out a few lines and say, hey, that's what happened, fuck that person, and then try to organize a lynch mob against a person. All the while, it almost like reverses. It's so easy to have one group offend, and then the other group gets offended, and then the next thing you know, they're at war. And that can play out on a micro level, to a larger context, even in international relations throughout history. We can see how human affairs and sociality works, and I think we have to look closer at human sociality, social biology, and look at how all of that works, and look at human nature as well. But what is it? What is it not? I mean, I contend that basic bullying and a lot of stuff, like, let's say you say a lot of things online, a lot of people don't actually mean what they say. You go to a sporting event, and I'm like, fuck you and your family, you piece of shit, you scumbag, and they're throwing shit at them, and they're saying, we'll kill your fucking children and eat them, or whatever. They'll say all kinds of shit. And people say the same thing online. Like, if you go to any YouTube channel, you'll see things that people would write basically on the bathrooms at a truck stop. And it's foul, it's dirty. And of course, they would never say that in front of, to one another, or a person they would meet at the truck stop. Then they would be, oh, how are you doing? Excuse me. And then the politeness comes in. But there's this, there's a wall there, and they feel that they can say that. And the same thing with a sporting event. So I would say a lot of things that are termed as bullying are really just heckling. And that's all it is. It's heckling. It is not bullying. I mean, there's things where a person can be harassed. That's harassment. There's a big difference between heckling and harassment. And it comes to legal legalities of that, too. I mean, you can be stalking someone and harassing them to a point where it's impacting their life and is putting them in financial and emotional turmoil to hurt them, even beyond their own ability to, take account, where you're adjusting that whole person's life. But then again, public figures put themselves out there, and people who are public figures have to take accountability as well, just like everyone. And not many people like to take responsibility in this age of outrage, where everyone looks every day to have something to scream and find a scapegoat to, launch into and express their inner turmoil onto that person.
I would say that I would definitely agree with a lot of what you said. MrRepzion, what do you have to say to that? Do you believe that there is like a blatant difference between heckling and bullying, or?
Well, I have a very brief response to the whole concept of what bullying constitutes. Mainly, I've always considered bullying to be something of someone using superior strength or their influence to intimidate or harass someone specifically. I think harassment has to do something mainly with the idea of bullying, is that when the concept of bullying as a whole is something that is unwanted to the victim who is being bullied. And it's constantly flooded out at that individual unwantedly.
Like what would be a circumstance that you would use to cite that? Like in your own life, if you could, or something that you've seen.
Well, I can use a personal example of what bullying was not. Just recently, back in January of 2012, I was actually taken to court by my ex-girlfriend due to harassment. She was claiming that a third-party tweet off of Twitter, which offended her, it wasn't even written by me, but it was influenced by me, was somehow me bullying her and harassing her. She took me to court over it, and obviously it got thrown out simply because it had no merit. But I don't know if that's an example or not, but that's an example of what bullying is not, which was a third party that was supposedly influenced by me.
Right, so you would say that you were just merely calling her out on her bullshit instead of bullying her, like as if she claimed that you were doing.
Yeah, because when we went to court, the whole concept was that I was harassing her, and that also, is in the definition. Harassment is within bullying. There's a lot of different elements which constitutes as bullying, but harassment is one of them. That can be verbal, that can be physical, that can be mental. And she was claiming that I was verbally harassing her through third-party people, if that is even possible.
Yeah,
I would say that there's a lot of context to have to prove there, which is pretty much unprovable. She'd have to pretty much have, show all kinds of things. Besides, this gets into defamation, basically defamation and issues of freedom of speech as well. That's one of the worst things about this, is people not only, when they call bullying, they also attempt a lot of time to censor others. It's not just to stop them, but to censor their speech. It's like no one can disagree anymore or argue back and forth. And I think that is a horrible thing. Now, there are times where people can gang up. I've seen it on YouTube. I've seen it from major atheists who gang up on people. And that's the whole mentality, is to do a lynch mob. It's very interesting to me that there's so many atheists who hate the whole lynch mob mentality and stereotyping by Christians of atheists, then go and so many atheists go and do that very thing to various Christians. I mean, I've seen it done to so many people. I know Daniel has, I know you have, Will, and like from a Thunderfoot going over, I made a video about the poster boys of atheist stupidity, who don't care about truth, who don't care about science, and then they just go around basically torching people, as do people like P.Z. Myers and various feminists, such as so-called feminists, or whatever you want to call it, like the Sket Chicks and all of them. They just go around. I mean, you want to talk about bullying, and there's a lot of hypocrisy. There's no two-way street. It's almost like they're just there for drama, for hate, and everything. And I'm okay with them having their speech, but if I will defend my worst enemy. I'll even defend those people such as Thunderfoot. I'll defend anybody because I believe in freedom of speech. I would even defend people like P.Z. Myers if it came down to it, even though I very much disagree with those type of people who go out and lynch mobs, and even people like Christopher Hitchens, who has spouted, that he's advocated for hatred of people who are religious. I'm not a theist myself. However, I believe in freedom of speech and everything, even people to hate. I will defend bigots. for their right to speech. I don't believe in silencing people just so they don't cross the line of harassing me. You don't have a right to follow me down the street and come harass me at my home and do other things. And a lot of times online, it is our homes. And there's certain, we have to determine where is the line. I mean, a lot of things is like you can sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me. But it seems like in today's age they can. But there's a point where people invade other people's lives because so many of us are online in a new global electric. The internet connects the whole world, and it's a big part of our lives. And there are a lot of people run their businesses through this. And there's a time where people go out and attempt to, say, call bullying, and they censor people or do lynch mobs, flag people down for disagreeing with their viewpoints, and to silence them. And that's bullying, to flag people, to DMCA, for false privacy complaints, and so forth. And I think this is absolutely despicable. I think it's an act of cowardice that so many people do this. It's outrageous. And where is the sense of outrage? Everyone wants to play victim, and about these things, and people can go and lie and bullshit and exploit just so you do it with a smiling face. It's okay, and you can advocate all the hate you want. But it's so interesting that so many people, are ripping others that hate while spouting hatred themselves and then spouting censorship, but they don't want to be censored themselves. There's abundance of hypocrisy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what all this stems down to, it seems like people believe that others are responsible for, our psychological suffering, and, if that were the case, why are other people responsible for our psychological suffering? I'll start with you, MrRepzion.
Can you repeat the question again?
Basically, why are others responsible for our psychological suffering?
I don't really think other people are, because I'm someone who's really into the whole concept of we kind of define ourselves and we let other people define us, which is where the whole concept of bullying is affecting us mentally is we allow it to. I'm not sure if that makes sense.
It does to me.
Yeah, it does to me too. Galen, what do you have to say to that?
Well, it's just that, someone can say whatever they want to me, and I am responsible for my emotions, for my mind, for my body, who I am right here. I'm responsible for this. And you can say whatever you want to me. Am I going to be just reactionary? When I look at crowds, am I just going to go with, what the majority says and the majority does? If I see the majority raping someone, am I going to just go in with the crowd and do that? I mean, humans look in social cognition terms of what are they doing? And then when people look at YouTube, they don't look at arguments. They don't do that. They look at how many views a video has. And then a lot of people, to be, non-conformist, so they can say they're independent, they're like, well, fuck everyone who's popular. Mm-hmm. And then, but is any of that intelligent? Everyone wants to be, some kind of cool person and to feel good. So we operate in labels and other stuff, and we blame people. And when do we ever say, I take responsibility for myself? Now, I'm not saying that harassment isn't wrong. When someone harasses someone and puts up false things like what was done to Daniel, that can be taken to court, and we have systems that are in place to do that. But some people exploit systems, like the courts were weaponized to attack Daniel. I mean, does that girl or whoever she was, did she really think she had a legitimate lawsuit? I mean, that was horseshit. It's just complete bullshit. She used and weaponized the legal system to hurt Daniel and to try to fuck with him. And he stood tall against it and fought it out right. And I'm proud of him for that. But how many people do that? And how many people will just say, when I hear about people who are bullied in so many different types of ways, at the end of the day, we have to stand up for ourselves and better our world. And we're worth doing it, because if we don't stand up for ourselves, and what are the consequences of not doing it?
Right. Yeah, here's the way I see it. Like, at the end of the day, you are responsible for defining who you are, and if you're going to let bullying define who you are, then you've just lost complete control of yourself. Like, that is probably the biggest lesson I've learned, through my experiences in high school and through my experience post that. Like, I also was in a peculiar relationship where I, was so infatuated with the guy that I, allowed myself to be defined by him. And I feel that was one of the biggest mistakes I ever made, because I just lost complete identity of myself, and I had to get that back once that was over and done with.
I can completely relate to that situation.
Oh, you don't say. You mind going into details with that?
Oh, sure. When my first girlfriend, I was just saying that I placed my identity in this girl, and not only was this girl a manipulative, vindictive bitch, but she took advantage of me defining myself in her, and she took advantage of that, and then used that as leverage in the relationship to get whatever she wanted. And I was so gullible at the time, only being 16. I would take her around, drive her around. I would spend money on her, and she would use the whole manipulating tactic that because my identity is rooted in what she thinks of me, if I don't buy her this or I don't do this, then she won't care for me, and she'll actually... How do I say this? There was actually times in our relationships when she'd actually encouraged me to commit suicide based upon me not doing certain acts. There was a point in my life where she wanted me to delete my family members off of Facebook, and I said absolutely not. And this is actually where our relationship ended, because my parents came to me and they were like, "Daniel, this girl is controlling you to the brim. She's wanting you to delete your own family off of Facebook because of the control that she has in your life." I mean, that's how bad it got, and that's how deeply rooted my identity was in this girl who took advantage of my weakness. And then after the relationship ends, tries to take me to court over it.
Jeez.
Well, it's a fucked up situation.
I tell you what, if we were to enter into a pissing contest, whoever had the worst relationship experience, I think you would actually win. I thought I had it bad whenever I was, taunted with my HIV status, but this bitch told you that you should commit suicide?
Yes, after our relationship ended, she told me to commit suicide, and she said my life would be better without if I brought baggage to her or something. Like, she actually blamed her emotional response and her emotional status on me all of the time. That was one of the problems in the relationship, is that it was always my fault. Everything I would do was my fault. If she was upset, it was my fault. All the time. And I dealt with this for 2 years. And I can say that it really affected me, not only in my self-esteem, but how I viewed myself and my identity.
I got a question.
Yes.
Yeah.
To Daniel, that was in a more personal way, but it also came out a bit socially as well. What about with interaction with people online? How has that gone? And when you've had faced adversity, how has that gone?
Well, that's interesting, because again, I take the internet is completely different than real life. I'm someone who I notice this difference, and I wish a lot of people would realize that real life bullying is not the same as the quote-unquote status cyberbullying. I really hate that word, because number one, I don't even believe cyberbullying exists, because the word cyberbullying it just pisses me off when people say that I offer any criticism or I make a video response to someone. They instantly say that I'm cyberbullying, when cyberbullying, number one, doesn't exist, because by definition you can stop cyberbullying, if it even existed, by simply blocking people. You choose to put yourself online, you choose to make videos. There's hundreds of things you can do to stop people harassing you or calling you a cunt or calling you a dick, and you're able to stop it. Whereas real bullying, physical, verbal bullying that maybe happens at church, which is in my case, bullying happened at church. Oh, the irony of that. Or at school. It's completely different, just because one is situational, in which you can't help. If you're going to high school every day and you're having people pick on you and mock you for your weight, or be discriminating against you, or being racist towards you, you can't really stop it from happening. School authorities don't do shit now, really, on the topic of bullying. They just allow it, and they don't offer any criticism, or they don't do anything to stop it. Whereas online, you have all these options that, you know, you put yourself online, you write the comments, you can delete the videos, you can do all these things to stop bullying from occurring. And that's why I say cyberbullying doesn't exist. I have a video on my channel where I've talked about this, and boy did I get a lot of criticism from those little people who think that online is the exact same as real life, and there's a large significant difference between those two things. I mean,
there's basically, just real quick, you're basically saying it's contextually different.
Yes, contextually, and mentally, because first of all, you can delete things, you can block things, you can control your environment on the internet for the most part. For the most part, unless you have someone who really knows what they're doing.
Have you ever had anyone you feel that went past that line where people invaded your privacy online and stalked or harassed you?
There was that one case of that crazy fangirl. I don't know if you ever saw that video, Galen, of this girl who wrote me a sex poem, and then somehow got my address, and then started calling me actually on my personal phone. I deleted her off Skype, and somehow she was finding my other alternate email. I guess that would be one example, but I really wouldn't consider that harassment. She really shut up once I made a video about her. And then when I made the video about her, people were saying that I'm now bullying this girl who was harassing, and not only harassing, but stalking me, which when someone starts to stalk me on the internet and starts to spread information about me, which is false, simply because I wouldn't accept her sex poem about me, and I told her how stupid it was, the internet got a bit hasty at me, I should say.
The good old internet hate machine, huh?
Fucking A-right.
Yes.
Fucking A-right. Well, I'll just say to that earlier point, I certainly find ironic that your girlfriend would accuse you of bullying whenever she's the one telling you to commit suicide.
Yes, I know. It's the relationship was more ironic than I think anything I've ever experienced. Just like I said, it goes to the whole. She blamed everything on me, and my parents were smart enough to keep telling me this, and I was too stupid and naive to not listen until it was too late, and a lot of stuff happened because of that.
Well, the good thing is that it worked itself out in the end, and you stood up for yourself against this bullshit. And, you know, there's certain people can be very toxic, and, you know, I think they mean well, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions. She probably thought she was doing right in certain ways, to be a contrarian here.
Well, this girl also this girl you have to take in mind also believed after our relationship ended, she contacted several women that I was interested in after our relationship, because, you know, she broke up with me, and I'm like, okay, if you're done with me, then I'm moving on, you know.
Right.
But apparently she didn't, and she contacted other people, and then sent emails out to other women that I was interested in, and made up lies about me, claiming that the only reason I'm their friend is because I want to bang them.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing is, if you do want to bang them, you know, like, that's between you and them. They might want to bang you. So, you know, like, she needs to grow up. I mean, that's the problem here. She's living in an ideological world.
Email that she spread out about me, just defaming me as a character, and it was that pissed me off. And the funny thing is, I actually had that in court. She took me to court, so I had a lot of stuff on her that she did not know about.
Yeah, that was a rough time.
I still remember her priceless face when my lawyer, because I hired a lawyer just to scare the living shit out of her. The lawyer walked up to her and handed her a 28-page declaration with all of her screenshots and emails and things that she had said to me about committing suicide, encouraging me and manipulating me and telling me just terrible, horrendous things. The judge saw it, so let's just say I won.
Yeah.
Sweet
I
deal.
wanted to